You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Uffens. Enjoy the show. We're here today with Hyrum Neilson, who is the general manager of the King Salmon Lodge up in Alaska. Excited to talk with Hyrum today and kind of talk a little bit about his journey. You know, we'll talk about his upbringing in the hunting world and what led him ultimately back to Alaska, to where he gets to live the dream that kind of everybody aspires to, escaping into the wild of Alaska. So Hyrum, thanks for joining me, man.
Good to be here, Ryan. Thank you.
Right on. So with that, tell me, like, have you been hunting your entire life?
Yeah. So my dad's been an avid hunter. I mean, going way back into like his childhood. He was raised in Southern California. He never really did any hunting. He started chasing jackrabbits around with a 12-gauge shotgun to kind of learn the trade himself. And my grandpa was a huge fisherman, so I got a lot of fishing background from him. But my dad really wanted to be a hunter, you know, and so he actually started learning it. And when I came along, I'm the second child of 5 kids. I've got 4 sisters, so it was kind of like I was lucky enough that my dad did hunting with the girls as well, but it was a lot more, hey, Hyrum, let's go. So I got the front row seat to get out there and get hunting since I was a little kid. So, yeah.
What's your like earliest memory that you have being out hunting with your dad?
I can remember, you know, even at like 4 years old, 5 years old, going for pheasants and stuff. When I first was, as a little kid, we lived in Utah. We had a field right across the street from us that had amazing pheasant hunting, and we had a couple dogs that we would run. And I remember mule deer hunting and things like that. And then after, you know, I got a little bit older, I did hunter safety and all that kind of stuff. And I can remember the first time I ever got to go and shoot an animal, I had to have my hunter safety first and got to carry my own rifle and all that good stuff. And I was 12 years old at the time when I got that done. And I can remember we were hunting in Idaho, and we were on this amazing hunt that we were doing with some friends, and we were hiking up this mountain. And as a 12-year-old kid, you know, I wanted to shoot something, but I was also one of those guys that when you get hungry, you get hungry. And it was kind of this deal where I learned real fast that I said, Dad, I'm really hungry. I want to have a Snickers. And funny story goes is he's like, would you rather eat a Snickers or would you rather shoot a deer? So I was like, well, I want to do both. And he's like, well, let's shoot the deer first, then we'll eat a Snickers. So we hiked to the top of the mountain, and we look down and we see a pod of a pod of bucks down in the bottom of the canyon there. And we both picked our deer and shot at the same time and took down 2 nice little deer at the time, packed those out. And that kind of really started the desire for me to be more of a hunter, because that was the first time I got to actually carry a weapon and shoot something myself. And it was, I got the bug right from then.
So it is true then that Snickers satisfies.
Satisfies.
You had to get your buck down before you could have your candy bar.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a crazy memory to be able to have. That's cool that you guys both shot at the same time.
All done.
And were able to get the job done. So,
well, what's funny about that story is if my dad ever hears this podcast, the reality is we shot at the same time, and I killed my buck on the first shot, and it took him twice to get his. And so I always even razz him now, because he's a dead eye. He hits everything he shoots, and he's killed a lot of animals. But that one time, it was 1, 2, 3, shoot, and mine drops, and then his keeps running, and he had to shoot again. And I was like, all right, we know who's the better shot here.
How old were you?
I was like 12 years old, so I was a cocky little, starting to be about a teenage age.
The age that you know that you're old enough, it's like I've learned a little bit about smack talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't always know where the right place to place it, but we think we're going to try it out anyways.
Yeah. That's funny. That's way cool. So, what what was like the first hunt that you ever kind of went out where you were on your own?
I think a lot of, so from there we had moved to Alaska. Now, a lot of things when you're hunting in Alaska, especially when I was like, I moved there when we were 12 years old. And so big bear, we lived in Yakutat. Yakutat has big brown bears. Everything up here wants to kill you. You know, the weather wants to kill you. The ocean wants to kill you. The animals will stomp you, they'll eat you. So it wasn't till probably about 16 or so when I was doing a lot, where I started doing a lot my own, but I'd still hunted a lot of big animals before that. So I had, there were times I remember shooting my first moose. My dad and I were going on a hunt out there in Yakutat, and where we were at, it was an any bull moose situation. We didn't have a lot of time. We'd four-wheelered out to the end of the road, and we'd been hiking, and we thought, let's try this trick. I'd heard with big bulls that you could walk up a creek, and it's going to mask your sound so that they think that it's another moose coming up. And so we walked up this creek for miles, and we got to the kind of the head of where that creek was. Stepped up over, and sure enough, there was a cow and a little bull sitting out there. And that my dad was with me because he was, I mean, he really was and still is a lot of times my hunting buddy. But I remember him giving me the chance to shoot the bull. We come up out of the water, and there it was. It was only like 150 yards away, and I couldn't believe this was my first experience as an Alaskan chasing these big animals, and I couldn't believe how big that thing was. And he was only like a 40-inch bull, but it was insane how big the bodies on those things are. And I remember I was hunting with my first rifle. It was an old Ruger. Was it Ruger? I think it was a Ruger 270. It was not a great gun, but it was something that I could afford, and that my dad had got for me and whatnot. And so I remember putting down that bull, and it was that experience turned into quite the. I mean, all so many stories where it was crazy. We ended up trying to get it out of there, and we packed the first pack out. Then we brought the four wheelers in, and you get turned around and turned backwards, and it took us a full day to get that thing out of there, taking it out at dark. And as a 12-year-old kid, or 13-year-old that I was at the time, everything gets you nervous when you're that age, and you hear sounds and you think there's a bear there, and you see something over there and you think, oh man, you're going to get eaten. And so it really was like that was my first experience in Alaska doing that bull moose. And from there, I mean, I had a chance of uh, shooting a 9.5 foot brown bear right at the end of the season when I was 14. And I'd shot other moose at different times, and blacktail deer hunting and trapping. And I mean, it just became ingrained as part of my life. And so it really became a part of that. Now moving into my own personal stuff, like I said, I think it wasn't till probably when we started living in Cordova that I did a lot more uh, solo hunting and stuff like that. And my favorite stuff to do there was hunt blacktail deer. And you go out into the islands, and you separate from your party, and you get out there, and it's kind of like a cat and mouse game, because those deer are like ghosts. And so you're out there trying to find these little critters that see you a long time before you see them, and trying to mimic their sounds and all that kind of stuff. It's just a hoot to really hunt those deer. And so that's probably my
Yeah.
favorite thing.
I've heard that country that those deer are in are just like, it's like you said, like they can be ghosts
Yeah.
because you can see them and then they can be gone just as fast as, I mean, it's the same as, really any animal, but
Right.
some of the videos and stuff I've watched, it's like you can be on top of them and not even know it if you're not paying attention.
The next
And
time the first time they're there, it's a buck blowing a snort saying, I'm out of here. And you're like, oh, what was that? Oh, they're gone. And
yeah,
it's big, huge timber. Then you get up into the alpine, and it opens up. I mean, it's a super challenging, but super fun type of hunting that I love. I mean, I've hunted it. There's only a couple things up here that I've not chased. And I think blacktail deer happens to be one of my favorite to chase. But I mean, sheep are fun. I've done doll sheep. I've guided doll sheep hunters. I've shot big moose, and that's awesome. I've shot big bears. I've chased goats, black bears. I've baited bears, all that kind of stuff. But I think blacktail deer are right up there on the top of my list as something that's a favorite to chase.
and maybe go into a little bit more detail about that. Like, what is it about the chase of those animals? I mean, is it just their elusiveness?
Yeah, it's their elusiveness. They just when they're in the rut, it's like any type of deer species. When they're in the rut, you can a lot of times get them to come to you, but they still it's they blend in so well. And what's crazy about them is they were transported. They're not like indigenous to the area, but they've done so well that they've populated all throughout the Prince William Sound and southeast and different places, and they're super fun. But as far as just you never know what you're going to get when you're hunting them, because you can go to one island and it's going to be flat and it's big timber, and you go to another island and you're going through the big, the Devil's Club and the big timber, and all of a sudden you open up into these different plateaus, and it's such a challenge and so different. And the cool thing as an Alaska resident, where I hunt most of the time, out in the Sound, I get to shoot 5, and so that makes it even more cool. Is that it's not like one and done. You get to shoot 1 or 2 deer, and you put one in the backpack and you start hiking, and you got this heavy pack on, and all of a sudden you'll see another deer as you're coming out, and so you take another one. And see, having 4 kids, it makes it pretty fun to be able to take my oldest daughter. She's just graduated just the other day, and she's like, Dad, I hope before I go and do my other things that we get a chance after this next season at the lodge that I run, that we'll be able to get out and do some deer hunting before she's gone. And then I got 2 boys that love it. My youngest daughter, she's 10, and she's like, Dad, I can't wait till my chance to go chase them. And so it's just one of those deals where, man, where different locations has a different challenge. If you go to Kodiak Island, it's a lot more big, thick, and not big, but a lot of thick stuff where you're hunting through like blueberry patches and things like that. You go in Yakutat and Cordova and those places that I used to live, it's big timber, and then into the Devil's Club, and it's like playing chess. So you're moving those pieces, and it really makes it exciting in my opinion.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your living in Alaska, because man, if I were to try and get my wife to go and take the kids and head up there, like it's almost not almost a non-starter. It is a non-starter. She's like, no way in hell am I going to go do
Right.
that type of stuff. But yeah, what's it like raising? You said you have 4 girls.
I have 4 kids. I have a girl, 2 boys, and then a girl. So I got a sandwich that I got going on here. So
So how'd you convince your wife to take your family and move up to Alaska?
I got lucky that I found a girl that she actually is from Evanston, Wyoming, and
Okay.
her older sister and her sister's husband had moved up here when she was like a junior or sophomore in high school. And she actually graduated a year early down in Evanston and moved up to Alaska, up here in the Wasilla Palmer area, to live with her older sister. And just so happened that I met her down at school down south at BYU, Idaho, in Idaho. And when she said she loves Alaska and she wants to live in Alaska, I was sold. I didn't care how pretty she was or if she even knew how to cook. It was like, all right, you're my girl.
I'm gonna marry that girl.
That's right.
That's awesome.
And
So
she loves it as much as I do. She loves to fish. She likes to get out, and she doesn't like to shoot stuff herself. She has killed a couple, that we have subsistence hunting up here and whatnot. And she drew a couple times where she had to put down a moose for us for the freezer, and she's done a great job. But she loves going, but she doesn't love to shoot. But she's definitely one of those ones where it's like, teach our kids how to be subsistence, how to take care of themselves, how to be self-sufficient in providing and starting a fire, and just a well-rounded thing. So
yeah, we were talking before we started recording that you said it's been like 21 years since you bought meat from the store.
yeah. Yeah. So we buy chicken and we do buy pork. But as far as beef, the only time we usually buy beef is if Sammy, my wife's name is Samantha. She goes by Sammy. She's like, what do you feel like? It's like a big juicy steak, like a T-bone or a ribeye or something that we'll throw on the grill. And it'll be like for Father's Day or something. But everything else, it's been, I mean, we're going on 21 years of marriage now. And since I've been married, we haven't had to go to the store to buy beef. We shoot a big animal and then a couple of deer a year usually, and a caribou sometimes, and we turn a bunch of it into burger. We turn it into roast. We turn it into steaks, and so it really comes down. I mean, stew meat and everything. And by doing that, we really have had the blessing of the game animal to really keep our lives going the direction it needs to go.
Yeah, I've had some other guys on the show that we've been talking about where it's like there's like disconnect with, like, I mean, people in general, but like especially kids. Kids have got it super easy. So I think it's way cool that you're up there like living what a lot of guys are just talking about doing.
Oh yeah.
What are your kids' age range?
So my oldest, her name is Gracie. She's 18. She just turned 18. Well, it's about what is it? What is it, May? So yeah, she's been
May.
18 for about 4 months now. And then Tyler, he's 16. he's a sophomore in high school. Then Lincoln is a eighth grade. He's going into his freshman year. He's 14. And then Liza, she's almost 11. So she's 10 right now. So.
And do all your kids, they go out and hunt with you,
Mm-hmm.
fish, do all this stuff?
Oh yeah, they do it all. It's been kind of a family tradition to teach them the ways. And uh, being that I do run the King Salmon Lodge, which is a fishing lodge up here in Alaska, they help out with all the chores, but they also are passionate about learning the trade of being a fishing guide. Um, my daughter Gracie, she plans to try and shoot a brown bear with her compound bow in the Naknek region before we end the season. Hopefully, is her dream before she leaves the house now. And uh, my son Tyler shot a number of deer and a moose, and Lincoln shot a moose. And Liza, my baby, she's not been able to kill anything yet because she's only 10, but that's going to happen here anytime. So they're all kind of passionate about that. We even, I mean, as a family, all of my three oldest have even, we're big into building AR-15s and things like that. And so they've each built a gun that they're going to take when they go, when they leave the house. And Liza, my baby Liza, she's the last one to do it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Hiram, we'll have to keep in touch. We'll maybe have to do a follow-up episode with you and your daughter.
There you go.
Talk about that brown bear hunt.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be fun to talk about.
So. Yep. And hopefully, like, we make it happen, in October when it's all said and done. By the time we close the lodge, I'll know for sure if it went down or not. But she shoots her bow every day. She gets outside and it's like, all right, this is my 20-yard pin, 30-yard pin, 40-yard pin. She's cranking up her bow every night just to make it a little bit harder because she's like, I got to make sure I'm shooting over 55 pounds, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty fun to see because she's just a go-getter. But funny thing is she's a ballerina. She loves to dance and she's done all that, but she's also outdoorsy, get her done, and she'll kick the guy's butt if she has to. So
yeah, perfect. See, that's what I keep. I got two granddaughters. I mean, I've got two daughters of my own, and neither of them want to hunt. My son, he and I go out and hunt together, but my 2-year-old granddaughter, the other one's like 4 weeks old, 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks. But
jeez, congrats, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. We started young, but it's fun because like I sit down and show her, like she'll get my phone, we'll go through Instagram and we'll look at like the elk hunting reels and things like that. And you ask her, I don't know if she realizes what she's saying yes to, but she's like, Papa, I want to go hunt elk. And I'm like, good. And my wife's like, she's going to be a princess. I'm like, you can be a princess and still go out and freaking, drop some large animals, be a big game hunter. So
yep.
Anyway, yeah, I'm going to have to let you introduce your daughter to my wife. Let her know she can be a ballerina and still go take down, big old brown bear. But that's wild.
Next time we do it, when we do that, I'll make sure I have pictures because you'll see her in her dance poses with her beautiful outfit on, and then hopefully it'll be her hands just holding up this big old bear paw, that kind of stuff.
That's why. So do you have to have a guide when you go out as an Alaska resident for a brown bear?
Nope. That's the beauty. One of the blessings of living here is if you live here, you're allowed to do it. And so, like, as long as you're a resident for over a year, I can go out and chase brown bears and moose and doll sheep and all that stuff that some of those you have to, if you're a non-resident, you have to hunt it. And so, and it actually goes to the, like, anybody that is married into my family. So like I have 4 sisters, all of them have their husbands, all of them I can take hunting because they're within that distance of relationship that I can take them as their as their guide. So they can do that. But I've got cousins and all sorts of people that are like, Hiram, you got to guide me on a bear hunt. It's like, dude, if I actually had my Class A guide license, I would love to, but I don't. So I can't. And they're like, oh man, someday. So.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I think everyone's dream is to go hunt bear in Alaska. I mean, guys that have like done it all, right? Like I'm new to hunting. I'm still trying to figure out how to take down a freaking elk. But yeah, like we've been looking, like there's a couple bear hunts. I'm going to try and get a tag, go up in Montana in September. The other hard part is like that's like prime elk hunting season for us too here in Utah.
Right,
so
right.
It's like, okay, what do we do? How do we balance this? But that I don't know, because I'm so new. I mean, I spent time in the outdoors, but to go out, like, is she going to go by herself? Or are you going with her?
She'll have me there.
Okay. I was,
Yeah.
I was like, I figured you'd be there, but you said she'll send pictures, and I'm going, wait, you're going to let her go out
Yeah.
by herself?
You know,
Like,
she's brave enough that that she would do it. She'd carry a sidearm like a 44 or something with her and get up in a tree stand probably, but I'd rather be with her to share it with her and
oh
make that
yeah,
happen.
100%.
She shot a black bear when she was like 14 or 15 that we were out in the sound, and I put her on the beach and we did a stalk, and then I let her kind of stalk in on her own and take the shot and shoot the bear when I wasn't with her. I was back far enough I could see what was going on, but she kind of did it her own self. And
Was
she's
that
like, man,
rifle or archery?
that was rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was with the
This is
rifle,
good.
but this is going to be up close and personal with a
Yeah.
compound.
Yeah. I was just showing my nephew, matter of fact, last night, that they were like, hey, have you got any crazy bear stories? And I'm like, I don't, but I know some guys that do. And like we were talking about Donnie Vincent, The Other Side, his film. I mean, it's all about his bear hunts that he's done.
Hmm.
And he had this big old brown bear that just, this thing creeped up on him, and he shot at it. And his first shot with his bow, I mean, it's maybe 12 yards, goes flying over, nicks a branch and goes over the back. And then he knocks another one and shoots again and misses. And then the thing starts to run at him, and you hear like the shot go off. But his
Hmm.
guide was there and paralyzed it. They ended up having, they waited a minute. They're like, I think we just, because the second the shot hit him, it just dropped.
Oh yeah.
And it was like one of those where it's like, I think it's just paralyzed. But dude, I couldn't imagine being an 18-year-old girl versus like a 45-year-old man out there with getting up close and personal, like you said,
Oh
with
yeah.
the bow. I mean, that's how I'd like to go and try and do one, but it's intense, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, the adrenaline that you get just hunting like mule deer and elk, the stuff that I've gone out and done, it's amazing. I can't imagine when it's something that can eat you and that wants to eat you. And when it sees you and smells you, it's trying to decide, do I want to go try and eat that thing or not? So anyway, it's
No, it's crazy. I mean, I have stories like you said of just living up Alaska. You get all sorts of experience. My dad has a couple stories where he was out of Yakutat. He was across the bay in a place called Mambi, and I'd gone over and I'd hunted with him. But it was right in prime time of basketball, and I'm 14 or 15 years old. I'm one of the tallest kids on the team. So it's like, we need you, Hyrum. And so he went back over and was hunting by himself and had a story where he actually got charged by a bear and had to shoot this bear. It touched the barrel to the throat of the bear when he pulled the trigger. Just crazy stories like that where, you have to be on your game. And that's what some people they think they're pretty badass, which, people are, but Alaska is a little bit different. A lot of negligence happens up here where people are like, "Oh, I've hunted and I know what I'm doing." And I've hunted, I've guided a number of times. I actually have done a number of sheep hunts that I've guided, and I've guided some brown bear hunters and stuff. And no matter how many times they've hunted stuff, you get them out in the trees and out in the woods and out in the brush, and it's amazing how cocky somebody is until something turns bad, and then it's
yeah.
like they really want somebody that knows what they're doing. And even in my case, I got to be on my game when you're out there, because when you're in country, when anything out there could take you down, it's crazy that it happens with, people get in trouble when they're even fishing and stuff up where we're at. So it's like the weather is not trying to be your friend up here. The animals aren't your friend. And so it really is, you got to make sure that you plan for the worst.
Do you think that's the draw with people wanting to get to Alaska, because it's like the ultimate test of, can you survive?
Probably. Yeah, it really is. Have you seen that
I
show
mean,
Alone?
yeah.
There,
Oh
that
yeah. I've watched like almost every single episode.
every time we watch that as a family, my kids are always like, "Dad, you'd kill in that game. It'd be so awesome." It's like, well, maybe. I mean, it'd be hard to be hungry, but when you live in that kind of environment, it really is. Uh, you get if you let yourself be exposed and you learn from it, it really can be a cool experience. and not everybody up. It's funny because Alaska is a big enough place that not everybody up here is Alaskan, even though they live in Alaska. They're big city type folk, and they a lot of times you hear, oh, so and so went and did this, and they got in trouble big time. And if you're gonna take Alaska serious, you got to be willing to pull your big boy pants on and to get exposed. So
Yeah, I think just in life in general, when you think that you know something, I mean, that's when the trouble can start,
that's when the
right?
trouble hits. Yeah,
I think it's important, and especially when you're going into a situation like that. I mean, I've never been to Alaska. I've talked to multiple guys that have gone and hunted up there, and they're like, there's no way to prepare for it. Like, there's no way to prepare for the tundra, like, depending on what you're doing, where you're hunting, the different things that you're doing. It just, until you get there and see like the vastness of it, they're like, you get in different situations where you feel small in the world, but then you go to Alaska and they're like, it's an entirely another level.
it really is. Yeah,
So
and that's what's funny is people. I'll run across people and they'll be like, "Do you know so and so?" And sometimes I know him, and other times it's like, "You realize how big Alaska is?" It's like, "Oh well, he lives in Kenai," and it's like, okay, with reffing basketball and other things that I do, I potentially have come across that person, but that you can drive.
everyone probably thinks it's like northern exposure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Like
and
everyone
it
knows
was.
everybody up in Alaska.
And that's what's crazy is you could drive from Homer clear up to like Chicken and places like that, and it's going to take you a full day to drive. It's like driving from Washington down to California. It's insane, and it really everything is different. Like where we're at, we have the big mountains. We have the Chugach Range right next to us, huge mountains, dangerous mountains. I know guys that have gone up and guided sheep hunters and died up there, and I've seen what that's like because I've taken friends, and my brother-in-law shot a big old 40-inch ram back in there, and he was like, he's from Idaho and he's hunted in the Tetons and places like that, and he's like, I've never seen mountains like this before. And it's just like, well, you got to have your boots strapped tight, and you got to be on your toes because you take a tumble and you're getting a life flight out of places. And that's what's crazy is that you do that from one area and then you go to another place, and now you're just in open tundra and there's no big mountains, and you get lost because you can't get a landmark and that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing that the difference between eastern, western, north, and south of Alaska, that everything is different. It's got different challenges, different types of animals that you go from a brown bear on the coast to a grizzly bear in the interior. And it's really crazy how much different it is, because people be like, oh yeah, I went on a cruise up to Alaska. I saw it. It's awesome. And it's like, well, you saw the border of Alaska. You don't actually know what Alaska really has to offer till you get out and explore it a little more.
For people that have grown up hunting, and when they go into Alaska, and like you say, like you hear of people dying and getting injured, getting life flighted, what do you think it is? Like, what's the most common mistake that they make?
The biggest thing is exposure. A lot of times people don't realize you fall out of a boat, you don't have a lot of time, and you better know how to get warm. Or they get in a place and they get stranded. They took an adventure back somewhere, and they didn't do good planning. They didn't let people know where they were going, or they didn't have a good exit plan and things like that. And it really can be detrimental real fast. That there's up here, a lot of stuff happens in a bush plane. They fly the Super Cubs with the big old 35-inch tires, and there's kind of a saying where it's like there's really good, there's old pilots and there's really good pilots. Well, I don't know how the saying goes, but it's something along the lines of if you want to live a long time, you gotta be prepared, and you gotta really watch yourself, because I think bush pilots die more often than just about anything else up here. And it's not that they're bad pilots. My dad worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, and he had a guy named I think his name was Charlie, that flew for him for years and years and years. And the guy ended up dying in his own plane as he was coming back to where they were landing. He was by himself with his dog, and his plane just gave out on him. And he tried to land it onto a lake. It didn't make it. Didn't clear the trees. Nosed it, and he died on impact. And that guy had been flying planes for 45 years in the bush. And so it just, there's so much that can go on. And so you just gotta watch your back on everything you're doing. You better make sure that you know how to make a fire. You better make sure you have a little bit of extra food. You better, there were times as a kid that I'd be hunting over out of Cordova, and we'd go across the bay to go hunt blacktail deer, and all of a sudden the tide goes out and your boat's dry and it's almost dark, and you're like, well, we're going to wait till the tide turns and comes back in before we're getting out of here. You don't have cell phone service. A lot of times you do a quick day hunt like that, and you're like, well, I didn't bring a sat phone or anything like that. So now you're stuck and you're wet. And if you don't have a way to get a fire, you're going to be miserable until you can get across, And so it really is a matter of just being prepared. And a lot of guys come up with the intention of, oh, I'm just going to take it as it is, and it'll eat you alive.
Treat it like a hunt back home.
Yeah.
In the lower 48.
And not saying that there's not dangerous stuff back home, back where you guys are. I think that's amazing stuff to hunt. I've always wanted to hunt elk and stuff. And I did shoot that mule deer when I was a kid and whatnot. But, when I watch a lot of hunting shows and stuff, it's like, man, that is some pretty rugged country. But it just seems like there's a lot more ways to get out than there is up here. So
it seems like to me, like where you were talking about fire, and just like as we talked about alone, how wet stuff is in Alaska.
Yep.
And that's something that I would definitely have to, if I was ever going to go do something up there, like I would want to figure out how to start a fire in just a freaking crap condition.
Yep. Yep.
Because I mean, you watch those shows and people literally tap out because they can't get a fire started.
Because they can't start a fire. Yep.
And I can't remember what season it was, but it was like the very first day, the guy's up there and he goes down and he catches a fish and he sits down his fire rod and the tide comes in. And the next thing you know, he's like, where'd my fire rod go?
Yeah.
And and it was already wet there. And I just remember he just walked over. He's like, well, that was stupid. And he's like, and I'm done.
Yep.
And like called it. And it was, I think it was the first day.
Yeah.
I mean, he got to that evening, caught a fish. He was happy. He's like, now he sat the rod down, took the fish up, gutted it. I think that's why he sat the fire rod down and then gutted it, took the fish up. And he's like, I'm going to go. Oh, he's like, I sat my fire rod down there and that tide had come up and just gone and tapped him.
Yeah.
One day. Hadn't even really got hungry yet, man.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
And what's crazy about that is, again, the different places in Alaska, it's a little bit different, but it's moist a lot of places and there's not a lot of stuff in other places. And, when I was back in college, I was down there in Idaho and I did a senior internship down in Utah in the desert. And like we were starting bow drill fires and stuff. And like, dude, fires are easy, but you come up to Alaska and do it. And I'd love to see you bust out a bow drill fire in the Southeast in a rainy day, and if you don't give up, you can eventually get it. I've done it. I've shown my kids, but it's having the right gear, having stuff that you can light no matter what the weather's like to get you going, or knowing when you're down on the beach and you're beach combing because you can't find dry wood. It's like, there's some old water bottles that are plastic here that's got petroleum in it. Let's light the plastic on fire to start burning, and so then you can get your fire going. And so knowing some tricks that'll help you is definitely things that you want to know.
What would be your go-to like trick, if you would, like your survival tip to start a fire? Like you had talked about going down, find some plastic bottles, getting some of that petroleum and stuff like that. Like what would you do in that situation if you're just trying to stay warm and you don't have your typical fire starting kit with you?
Hope you have a buddy you can cuddle with, and he's the big spoon or you're the big spoon, that kind of thing. No. Well, it really, that's where having it. I usually carry a flint rod with me just because of that. And I feel like I could do pretty well of finding something on my body that I could light a fire with my, with whether it's something out of cloth or whatever. But most time I'm not hunting in cotton, and so that makes it a little more challenging. But I think in most cases, having the knowledge of, okay, if I'm hunting in the Southeast, a lot of those big spruce, if you can get underneath them you might find some good tinder underneath that's going to be dry, or an old log that's rotted. You can break it open and eventually get to where something's dry. Or knowing that if you find an old dry piece of wood and you carve it down enough, you're going to be able to build a feather stick or something that has dry material. And so knowing and actually practicing is kind of key on that. A lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, I could start a fire with flint and whatever. And can they really is the question. I've worked with troubled youth up here back in the day, and that used to be part of my job. I was a rec therapist, and we'd go camping, and they'd be from all over the state. They'd be sent to us from villages and other places, and like, oh yeah, I can start a fire anywhere. And we'd go on a camping trip, and that would be a part of our challenge. And it was like, show me. And even those boys that are living subsistence out in different places struggled. And so it's like, if you're going to talk the talk, make sure you're walking the walk.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, we've got a little family cabin up in Bear Lake. When it's easy to go out and throw, when you got newspaper and all the man-made fire starter stuff to get a fire going. But like we'll go out and get the kids and show them how to use like a flint rod and try and get the fire going. It's little things like that I think sometimes, like you take for granted. It's like, people talk about like, oh, what happens if, World War III breaks out?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, best case scenario, like all the nukes go off and nobody has to worry about anything.
Right.
But what's more likely going to happen is like the power grid's going to go down.
Yeah.
And that will kill more people, just not being able to find water to start a fire. I mean, if it's in the summer, great. But what happens when it gets cold?
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like one of the things we're doing is we're converting our gas fireplace. I want to have a wood burning stove.
Oh yeah.
And it's like,
that's right next to me.
Yeah. Well, and that's just probably like standard procedure up there in Alaska. I mean, the gas is great.
Surprising not. I mean, there's a lot of people that have them, but most people have gotten, just even up here, they've gotten so used to the commodities of gas and, the easiness of having electricity that's not a thing. And that's something that when we bought this house, they didn't have a wood stove, and it was like, we're getting one no matter what. So we put it in our basement. It's got a big flat top on it. We cut a bunch of wood that we have so we can use it anytime. And there's been a number of times that, because we get pretty hard wind here, that it knocks out all the power through town. And people are like, I haven't had power for 4 days. The house is so cold. It's always in the winter. And when it's cold for us, we come down as a family of 6 and in our big basement down here, and we just throw blankets out and play games by candlelight and stay around the fire. And it provides that heat. We could cook on it if we need to and stuff. And it really is just with the way the world is, I feel like it's something, no matter where I live, I think that's going to be a requirement to have. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
And talking about starting fires, it's even crazy that I talk a pretty good game, but yet even my kids, I'll challenge them to start fires. And even though I know they've done it a number of times, it's still funny when I'll ask my son Lincoln, my younger son, I'll be like, hey, go start the fire. And then I'll watch him. And it's like, what are you doing there? And he's like, well, I got to have the layers. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't just throw everything right on top and think it's going to light. You actually have to, what's the steps? And so teaching them to talk through the steps, it goes a long ways in everything, whether it's starting a fire or whether it's hunting or anything. When you're like, all right, if you're pursuing an animal, what are you going to do here? You're not going to just try and jump out and shoot it at 600 yards unless you know what you're doing. And if you don't, then you better know what you're going to do as an approach to get to that animal. Or if you're fishing for a giant rainbow trout and you don't know what you're doing, you might get lucky on a bite, but most likely that fish is going to look the other way. And so knowing your attack plan is pretty important.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, I want to shift gears, and I want you to tell me the story of that bull moose rack that I'm seeing behind you there.
All right, this is one of my pride and joys. It's not my biggest bull. I've shot a couple that are bigger. I got a 72 inch, a 69 inch, and then this one's 63. But what's cool about him, if you see, he's got a double paddle going on.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a cool story. So my dad and I and some friends of ours, we were hunting where we like to hunt, and my dad was up in a tree. So where we were at, when we were hunting these animals, there's big timber, big spruce trees. So my dad would get up on one end, and then me and my friend would come around it was a couple miles away, and we'd kind of push to see if we could get anything to come out into this kind of a triangle space that we'd hunt. And We called it Moose Meadows. And my dad had saw a big bull out there that was pushing 70 inches. So he jumped out of the tree to kind of to meet us, to work towards it and try and make sure somebody gets a shot. Well, in the process, he got busted by a satellite bull, a smaller bull. So he shot it. It was in an area where it was any bull, and it was probably about a 35-inch bull. And so I thought, oh, he shot the big one. So I come over to help him. I get over there, and he's like, no, this is not the big one. It's somewhere else. So I get there, and I'm like, you good gutting this thing? Can you take care of it? He's like, sure. Let's see if you can find that other bull. So I start following his tracks, and I'm walking down. So where we were hunting, we got this low bush, alders and blueberries and stuff like that. That's like just anywhere from your waist to your shoulder high, and it's super thick to walk through. And so you're walking through these dry fingers in the river, the dried up river area that we were hunting in. It was actually over kind of by the Martin River, and it used to be silty, so it's kind of got the glacier silt and stuff that you're dealing with and everything else. And then around you, you have these huge alder trees that are coming up over the top of you. And it blows my mind to know that these big bulls move through this stuff. It's insane that they're like bulldozers walking through that stuff. But so I'm following these tracks along, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, there's no way I'm going to catch up to this thing, but maybe I can find him where he takes a break and I can get a shot off. And I'm going, and I've probably walked about a mile in where I'd left my dad. And all of a sudden there's another set of tracks that join, and they're just as big. So if you look at the bull moose prints, they got these big old pads, and then they got the dew claws that are in the back that really kind of make it look like, okay, yeah, that's definitely what I'm looking for. And so I'm following them along, and all of a sudden there's a second set, and they're just as big. And it's like, okay, now I'm just going to keep walking. Maybe I got two chances now. And one of them keeps going off into another section that's super thick, big old alders, and then big old spruce. And it's like, well, I don't know if I want to go that way, but this other one branches off and goes to the left. So I decided to take that one, and I start walking, and it was a good thing I did. It was another probably 500 or 600 yards that I start hearing something, and there's some raking going on. And these bull moose, it makes this interesting grunt. This grunt sound that you hear, and it's kind of a deep, this really cool little sound that they do. And so I'm like, oh, dude, there's going to be a bull up here that I'm going to hopefully get a chance on. And so I slowly keep moving around, and it makes this big curve so that I don't have any straight through. I can hear him, but I got all these alders and this spruce and everything else in between us. And so I can't just make a shot through it. So I'm walking slowly, and every time he's making noise, I'm trying to grunt a little back, and I'm grabbing sticks and rattling the trees and making it sound like I'm another bull trying to come in and get feisty with him. And as I'm doing that, I finally clear the corner, and I can see the tail end of a moose. And I'm like, dude, that's got to be a bull. But I can't see antlers. I can't see anything yet. And I'm kind of in a pickle where I don't feel like I can move any farther until he gets distracted, because now you can hear that he's kind of stopped and is just listening. And so I wait there for a little bit, and I'm wondering, man, did I blow my shot? Did I make too much? I was rattling pretty good, and I'm like, maybe I blew my shot. And then all of a sudden he kind of does a bulldoze. He doesn't even get out in the clearing. He just kind of runs. And I thought he was going to run the other way, but he runs towards me and just, it's like, holy crap, this is a big bull. And I still can't see anything because now he's in the trees. And so I just sit on the far end of the bank where I'd been walking and just sit there. And I'm like, as long as he doesn't wind me, I should be fine. And eventually he comes out, and all of a sudden I look at him. He actually comes back. Somehow he worked his way, or maybe it even was a different bull. I don't even know. But all of a sudden he comes where he'd moved around and come from the other side. So he'd come around, and then I think he worked his way back around behind and was coming back into that clearing to kind of see what was going on. And when I see him, I thought it was two bulls silhouetted because he has that second paddle there. So I thought it was two, because the way it was is he's looking across the creek, the dry bed from where I am, and I see three paddles, and I'm like, dude, there's two bulls there. That's crazy. So I got my 300 Win Mag up, and I'm watching him, and then all of a sudden he turns, and everything turns with him, and I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy. So I shoot him, and when I hit him, he only takes 2 or 3 steps, and he hits that big thick brush, and then he doesn't fall down, but he doesn't keep moving. And I'm like, what is going on? And I can hear kind of a gurgle sound. I'm like, I know I did a good shot. And what happened is in between his antlers, he got a spruce tree. He hit that spruce tree so hard that it went in between the gap, and it held him up and he couldn't fall over. So he was in the process of dying, but he wouldn't fall down. And so I actually walked right up next to him and I put the barrel of the gun right underneath his ear and touched his head and fired around and shot him. And that dispatched him, and he dropped him right there. And
Yeah.
what's crazy about where we were hunting there is a lot of it is done with an airboat. You can't do an air. The way it works where it is an airboat where we were hunting is considered a motorized vehicle, and you can't hunt the same day on a motorized vehicle in that area. And so what we would do is we'd come up the night before, set up camp, and then we'd hunt the next day. And then anything we shoot, we'd bring back to the boat and take out. Well, with these airboats, we'd bring a jet boat and an airboat. Man, those suckers are the workhorse over there where we were hunting. This moose was probably 2.5 miles from wet ground, and the way it would work is we'd cut a patch in off of the riverbed, and you'd drive that airboat up onto the ground, and you would take that airboat all the way to the moose, and then you park it on top of the gut pile. You turn that sucker around, you get half a moose in the boat. Everybody starts pushing that boat so it gets going, and then you jump on the side and you're hanging on for dear life, and every time you hit something where it won't keep going, you jump out and push, and then you grab on again, and the guy that's steering, it's just got a big fin in the back that you're flying down, and you get back down to the river, and we would then we have a little winch crane on it that you then put that into the jet boat and come back and get the other half. And so my dad and my dad's friend had done that, and then me and my best friend Jake, we were like, well, we'll just hike back to camp, and then you guys come back and get us. Well, lo and behold, they get back to camp, and they're like, well, we better leave them something. So they leave us a tarp, and they leave us some meat sticks. And that's all. They take off, and by the time they get back to where they're dropping the meat to the trucks to go hang it up, they're like, there's no way we're going to get back to them before dark. So my friend Jake and I, it was one of those experiences like we were just talking, where we had what we had on us, and we had that blue tarp and some meat sticks back at camp. And we get back, and it's like, they're not coming back tonight, Jake. We better make a lean-to. So we make an A-frame lean-to, and we cuddle up that night. We start a fire. Luckily, we had some fire starting stuff. We start a fire, and we eat meat sticks and sit under a blue tarp all night, waiting for them to come back. And so the next morning, we're like, well, screw this. We're going to keep hunting. So the next morning, my buddy goes out, and, we whack another moose. And so we have another job for them to do when they get back. But we tell that story all the time, where my dad was like, yeah, they'll be fine. Just leave them a blue tarp and some meat sticks, and they'll be fine. I was like, well, I'm glad he had enough confidence that we weren't going to freeze to death. But I think that night I probably played the little spoon and Jake was the big spoon. I don't know. I don't remember.
So you didn't have anything to start a fire?
No, we had a fire pit there, but it rained all the time. And so it was one of those deals where it was like, well, we either figure out how to get this lit or else we don't. And luckily we were able to get something going, and we were able to stay dry that night. But it was one of those ones where we look back and it's like, man, that's a sweet story, but it could have went different.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. Hey, tell me a little bit about, I mean, we've talked a lot about the different hunting and your upbringing, but tell me a little bit about what you're doing at the King Salmon Lodge. Because you guys do fishing and you do bear viewing, right? Up there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
So we're out of King Salmon on the Naknek River. So it's right on the edge of, it's in Bristol Bay. So if you have your Alaska map, anybody that knows this is kind of the Alaska map. We're right over here. Okay. So we're on the edge of Bristol Bay, and the Naknek River is known for all 5 species of salmon. It's also known for giant rainbow trout. And when I mean giant, I'm talking like we target for getting people in what we call the 30-inch club. So these are residential rainbows. They go up into the Naknek Lake. They come back in the river, and they spend their life in the river and up in the lake. They don't go out into the salt water. They're not a steelhead or things like that. So we have people that come from all over the world to fish for getting in that 30-inch club, because there's not a ton of places that you can do it, and we're one of those ones that you can. Out at the lodge, we do anything from spay fishing, 2-hand spay. We do just normal, fly fishing. We do We do conventional fishing with rod and reel. So it's kind of a deal with, if you don't know how to fish, we'll teach you. If you don't know how to use a fly rod, we'll show you. We really want people to be successful and be able to catch their dream. The nice thing with that is our season usually is from the beginning of June all the way until like the first or second week of October. And then the weather gets bad enough and the flights and stuff just get bad enough that we don't do much after that. But it's a pretty long season. In June, we start getting our sockeye and our kings that show up. We're one of the places right now that they still are allowing us in Alaska to fish for kings. A lot of places they're not, because they're disappearing. And a lot of that has to do with trawling and with foreign waters where the salmon grow up and not having regulation and stuff like that. So it's kind of a sad deal, but we are able to get fish for kings where we're at. We have sockeye, we have chum, we have pinks, and then of course we have the silvers. And June and July for us is for fishing for the silver or the sockeye and the kings. August is for fishing for the chum and the pinks and for the silvers that are super fun to catch. This last year, I think we had 65 million reds or sockeye that passed the dock right in front of our lodge going up, and it's really a cool place. Then we also have Arctic char, which are super cool. They're another part of the trout family. We have grayling, giant grayling. So people are like, I want to catch a giant grayling. So some people, like, oh, I've caught a 6-inch grayling. And one of my lead guides, actually, his name's Kurt. He led a gal a few years back that she caught a 22.5-inch Arctic or a grayling in the Katmai National Park, and it's just insane when people are like, I can't believe the size of the fish. And it's like, well, everything's a little bit bigger in Alaska. But yeah, we fish for pike, we fish for lake trout, we fish for rainbows. I mean, we fish for a ton of stuff where we're at. And then we're also right on the edge of the Katmai National Park, and that's world known for just bear viewing in general. We're about 20 minutes by float plane, or about 45 minutes by a water taxi to get to Brooks Falls. And Brooks Falls is that iconic place where people come and they get out on the platform and they see the bears hanging off the platform and catching the fish as they jump up the waterfall and stuff like that. And so people come to us to stay at the lodge to go out there and do that all the time. And the nice thing with our lodge is we have a lot of room. A lot of lodges aren't quite as big as us. They do a lot more, like it's a 5-day or 7-day adventure that you have to do. And we do a daily rate deal where if somebody has 1 or 2 days or 3 days that they want to come, then as long as we have space, we do it. We have an open restaurant, open bar. We can fit up to 46 guests at the lodge if we full capacity. And we really pride ourselves in feeling like we're going to become something, a place where people want to come and do their adventure for Alaska, whether it's bear viewing or fishing. Some of the other stuff we do out in the park is we do fly out fishing trips. We do fly out rafting trips for bear viewing and fishing, or just for bear viewing. We do fly out trips for photography. It really is a place where you're going to see stuff. You're going to see wild Alaska if you get out into the park. So it's pretty crazy.
If someone, wants to come up there and go fishing and kind of like, what would you recommend is like the right time frame to plan on staying to be able to kind of have like, the full experience?
Yeah. That's where I tell people, don't shortchange yourself. It's expensive to come into Alaska in general. And there's so much to do that don't say, I'm coming up for a day. It's a waste of your time. It's really, unless that's all you got, then do it. But I usually tell people to not go less than 3 days if you're going to come. It's like, if you give us 3 days, we're going to show you a good time. But if you can give us more, we're going to show you a heck of a good time. So usually it's like, hey, the nice thing where we're at, Alaska Airlines flies to us twice a day. So they come out at like around, they get there around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the first flight, and the other one comes around 4 o'clock. And so it gives you a couple options. If you can get on Alaska Airlines where you're coming from, or you go to Anchorage and get on Alaska Airlines, there are other planes that fly out as well, Aleutian and some other ones, but they're a little bit different on their time frame and stuff like that. But having a 737 come in twice a day makes it pretty easy to get to us, and that's where it's
still get to experience that wild Alaska.
Yep. Yeah. And the nice thing is they get out. We're not like a bush situation. They get to us and it's like they're living in a nice bed. They have if they want to spend their time watching a big screen TV in their room, they can. Otherwise, we go out and we have adventures. So we run 6 different jet boats on the river that we go and chase stuff on. Then, like I said, we do all sorts of flyouts where it's like we're going to catch Arctic char here, we're going to grayling there, we're doing pike over here, whatever, and so we can really custom fit it to what they're wanting to do.
What do you think's the best eating fish up there?
In my opinion, if you're talking about salmon, I think sockeye are the best personally. Some people would, they'll fight me tooth and nail on it and say that it's the king salmon. The king salmon is phenomenal. I love it as well. But I think my saying is the redder the better. And the sockeyes, the reason they're called red salmon is not only because their skin turns a red color when they spawn, but they've got the brightest red meat of all the salmon. So for me, it'd go sockeye king and then silvers. And then the others I don't really mess with. I'd use them for if I'm going to smoke some fish, or else I use it for dog food for my dogs. So
there you go. Hey, if someone wanted to come up trout fishing, like what's the best time of year to come up to get some of those big 30-inch trouts?
So the way that works is, I mean, when things breaks up, like right now, the trout are starting to come around where you're fishing for them with pattern like minnow patterns, and so you can catch them now. But the difference is you catch this giant 30-inch rainbow that weighs 5 or 6 pounds, and then in September, late August into September, when they've been eating the flesh from the sockeye and the kings, those suckers put on pounds quick, and that same fish will then be 8 or 12 pounds. And it's amazing how much of a hog they get, almost like these dolphin heads where their heads get really thick and they're just, it goes from where you hold them like this, and then when you next time you hold them, it's almost like they're just folding over your fingers. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. But so it really depends. It's one of those deals where sorry, my boy was asking me a question.
You're good. You're
so
good.
It's one of those deals where if you want to catch them when you're catching them on a minnow pattern, then you come in June. If you want to catch them when you're starting to strip a flesh pattern or egg patterns, or like using a Dalai Lama or a leech pattern or those kind of things, then you come the end of July into August and then into September. And some of the best fishing can even happen more into October, but that's when it really gets to where it's questionable if you get out. So it really is kind of a gamble.
Then it becomes more of a gamble with the weather.
Yes. So somebody might say, hey, I'm coming for 5 days, and you might get a fish 2 or 3 of them out of the 5 days of fishing based on the weather. And, it might be snowing, and we might be getting ice on the river by then. So it just depends. But if they're looking for the bigger, thicker fish, in August and September is definitely the time to target those big, big, fat rainbows.
Okay. And then what about someone that wants to come up for the bear viewing?
Is bear viewing? Time of year? Bear viewing is amazing. July is when Alaska comes alive. And if they're trying to tag it onto something else, then July is great for a lot of Alaska. But for us, that's when there's a lot of salmon have hit the falls. And so it goes from where. So the bears, it's kind of, I'd say a no-brainer, but some people don't understand this. The bears follow the fish. So people are like, I'm coming the beginning of June. And it's like, well, there's no fish there yet. You might see 1 or 2 bears. But then as soon as those sockeye start hitting that falls, you're going to see 25 bears. And then when it's really thick, you might see up to 50 bears in the park right there. And so the end of June is usually the earliest, like I wouldn't say anything earlier than about the 15th. And it just depends on when the fish get there. Because if we have a warm summer and the fish start coming up earlier, then the bears show up earlier. But it really is like towards the end of June. July is phenomenal. And then it's kind of a funny deal that the bears, between the sockeye and the silvers, there's about a week and a half or 2 week gap where there's no salmon showing back up at the falls. And so there's a few bears that stick around, and the rest of those bears, they go to different parts of the park for 2 weeks where they're following the fish. And then as soon as they're done eating over there, the silver starts showing back up at the falls, and then there's 50 bears back at the falls. And then they'll be there till October when people, when the companies aren't taking people out there anymore. And so it really just depends on what you're trying to see. But July is phenomenal. The second part of August and September is phenomenal. October is phenomenal, but it gets to where the weather might not let you get out there. So,
yeah. If someone wanted to book a trip up there, where would they go?
They can call me personally. They can go to our website. So we're the we're the King Salmon Lodge. So you go to
So
kingsalmonlodge.com.
kingsalmonlodge.com.
Or else they could call the lodge number. That's 907-246 8643 is the number. And that actually it's connected to my cell phone. So yeah, they can reach out to me personally. They can go to Hyrum at kingsalmonlodge.com, spelled Hyrum at kingsalmonlodge.com. That's my email. They can text me or email me questions. They can call the lodge number. They can go online and look at the pricing and stuff like that. We do have some different specials if they call me direct that I can help them with and whatnot, and help booking the different types of adventures that they want. But just finding a room at the lodge, they can go on the website and book that anytime. So
it sounds like it would be a good idea to maybe reach out and kind of plan exactly what it is that they want to experience.
Yes.
So that, they get the timing right and all that, because I mean, there's so much to do and so much to see.
Yes.
I would just say, we'll put a link to the website in the show notes. Again, it's kingsalmonlodge.com. But if you want to go up there, definitely reach out to Hyrum. I mean, if you've been listening to this episode, you can tell that Hyrum's a good dude, and you call him up, he's going to plan a good time for you.
Yeah.
So, Hyrum,
I think that's the biggest thing, Ryan, is just in general in Alaska. If you want to do it right, get a hold of somebody that knows what they're doing. Not saying I know everything, but I get people that call me all the time and they're like, "Oh, we've already booked this or we booked that." And then when I find out that what they're paying, it's like I could have saved you money and made it a little bit easier for you. So yeah, if you're going to do it right, do a little research and talk to people, and you'll find it, and they'll help you out.
Awesome. Hyrum, as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience here?
I really think that the best thing for anybody is, if Alaska is part of your bucket list, don't wait, make it happen. It's one of those things where it costs money, but I had a guy that called me the other day that he wants to book a couple days to come fishing to spread his son's ashes. And he's like, I've wanted to bring my son up for a long time. And he actually just passed away from cancer. And he's like, and he started getting teary eyed and saying, I should have just made it happen. And so, I mean, I get to enjoy the experience by living up here, but if it's part of what you want to do, find a way to make it happen and go live those dreams, because we don't know how long we have.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Hey, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with somebody, leave a comment, text a link to the show to somebody that you think might be able to benefit from this. And Hyrum, man, really appreciate your time. Again, visit, if you want to book a trip up there, it's kingsalmonlodge.com. We'll put a link to the website in the show notes. And just appreciate you guys listening and being part of the show. And I've enjoyed, every single time I get to sit down with somebody and do a podcast, it's a blast. So, Hyrum, thank you for your time, and everyone stay safe and God bless.